He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
car. Roses would be...
Like I put my beer belly on it.
If you can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have.
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns. What's right? I want to have a man's coolant.
And he's like, oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light.
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West.
Internet. Is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
Very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke. Welcome to Auto Off Topic. What's going on, Brad?
Not a lot, Andrew. What's going on with you?
Oh, just doing some daytime recording. Got some.
Yeah, you're throwing me off here with this daytime recording.
Yeah, had some time off, so might as well get this podcast in early so I can get it out to all
Do you
our
have
listeners.
a scheduled day off, or are you off today because of the weather?
I actually scheduled ahead of time because last week we didn't have a podcast last week because I was traveling for work. So I said, you know what? I need a extra break because I was away all week.
Sure. Well, it worked out well because you're currently in the middle of a nor'easter, if I've heard correctly. Right?
It's mostly raining.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
I've seen some posts. I guess they must be in a different part of the state.
Yeah, that part of Massachusetts that's not Massachusetts, outside of 495.
Sure. Western Mass.
Yeah. It's all
Alabama, Massachusetts.
Yeah, ski country is getting dumped on, which is cool. But then...
yeah, they can keep it, right?
Yeah, I'd go, but I'm coming to visit you soon, so I'll be too busy.
Well, the good news is that it's nice and warm here. So
that's what I saw on the Phoenix NASCAR race. So,
yeah, I think it's 73 outside right now. I was just out in the backyard throwing the dog around. No, throwing the ball around to the dog. Yeah. Throwing the ball around to the dog. And
interesting workout routine.
Yeah, it was quite toasty. It was quite toasty out there. So
yeah, NASCAR finished up their Southwest tour. So they were
Yep.
at Vegas, we didn't talk about, and they're at Phoenix this past Sunday.
Sure. And if you saw one, the second was a repeat of the first.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how often that happens in modern, like, NASCAR.
Yeah, back-to-back victories aren't super common, but I guess they do happen, especially when you're a Hendrick racing team. I mean, you have all of the money in the world to win the race and the best car. And I mean, the other Hendrick car, the Larson car, was just behind him or in front of him the whole race. They were 1-2 pretty much the whole time. And if it wasn't for, some yellow flags in the end and one other driver kind of getting up in there with Kevin Harvick, I don't think they would have been anything but 1 or 2 all race. So William Byron won 2 in a row, and it's kind of fitting because he's driving the 24 car, which is the old Jeff Gordon car, which Jeff Gordon would win lots of races in a row. So I guess Hendrick keeps doing it, right?
Yeah. What are the big teams? Hendrick, Penske,
Richard Childress, RCR.
And then maybe Gibbs. Is that?
Yeah, probably Gibbs is a big team.
Yeah.
And now there's some other multi-car teams too that are fairly new, but those are the ones that go back to the early days of us watching NASCAR, at least.
But I think they have like 4 to like 5 to 6 cars.
Sure.
Versus I think a lot of the newer teams are like 2 cars.
Yeah, for sure, because it's they're a lot less wealthy, I guess. But I kind of skip over Vegas because it was 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to make our non-NASCAR watching listeners listen to too much NASCAR today, but we're enjoying it, so we're going to talk about it. Vegas happened. It's over. William Byron won. We'll talk about Phoenix. Couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of frustrating. I didn't think ahead of time to buy tickets. And then the day of the race, it was like, oh, I wonder if I can still get tickets. Because I'm used to, I don't know, the mid-aughts where if you knew somebody who worked for any kind of company that had any involvement with NASCAR, they were just throwing tickets at you.
Yeah.
For like the New Hampshire race.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, you guys want tickets? I got 30 of them.
Which is there,
and
there was 2 races a year here, and that,
sure.
that was part of the problem. Everybody got bored with it.
Sure. Well, there are also 2 races a year here now. This race in March, and then usually the final race of the season is here.
Ooh.
And tickets were sold out.
Crazy.
So I wouldn't have thought that. I guess all of the events this year have been sold out, which I guess is good for NASCAR, right? That's like, can't ask for anything more. If you sell every ticket you print, then I guess that's a pretty good measure of success. So I was looking ahead to the event that's here in the end of the season. And do you want to take a guess on what the cheapest tickets available are?
This is for the second event?
Yeah. Yeah, the season closes.
Oh, I bet they're $150 a seat.
More than that.
Whoa.
180 to 250 is what I was seeing for basic seating. Yeah, so I also didn't buy tickets for that because it's a lot of money. So if they're selling out every single seat and it's, a minimum of 170, 180 bucks, that's a lot of.
And that's for like seats up against the fence, like.
I don't remember exactly where it was. There's only seating at Phoenix from like the front stretch through turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, I noticed there's not a lot of stands.
Yeah, because it's kind of put in between.
Can you just hike up on that mountain and like stand there?
That's what I'm currently trying to figure out because there were definitely people up on top of that mountain, and I don't like hiking, but I did it for Climb to the Clouds, so maybe I can do it for NASCAR.
Yeah, it might be a party up there.
It could be. I don't know.
Is it like public land? Like can't keep people off there.
It's what I'm trying to figure out. So there's 51,000 stands at Phoenix. So 51,000 people at a sellout crowd at 100 and something bucks a piece is that's some good money. So they're doing okay.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about a race is that the tickets that are closer to the track are actually less money usually.
Because you can only see so much. Yeah. So the nosebleed seats are actually more expensive at NASCAR. So I don't know. I'll try to figure out a way to get there, but I don't know that I'll be able to. So we'll see.
I know. I'm bummed that the New Hampshire event is the same weekend as New England Forest Rally, even though it's on Sunday.
Every year.
Yeah, but at least they didn't run IMSA the same weekend. It's the weekend before at Lime Rock Park. Yeah.
Okay.
Because a lot of times all 3 events fall on the same weekend, and you're like, cool. All the cool motorsports events that I want to go to are the same weekend in July. It's like really annoying.
Yeah, it's frustrating. That's frustrating. And I haven't been back. I didn't make it back last year for the rally, so I'm hoping to this year. But looks like I'll probably have a new job, so I'm not sure I'll be able to again. But time will tell. I'd like to be there.
I mean, I'll see. I mean, technically, the race is like in the afternoon. Like you could scoot over from Maine on the way home, catch the race. Depends on how tired you are and how much the tickets are.
It would probably be a pretty good wake up if you're tired. Go see some NASCAR running.
So
be a good time. But anyway, yeah, so William Byron won 2 races in a row. The other cool thing about Phoenix is, and we were talking about a little before we went on air here, there's seemingly no out of bounds. Anywhere that's paved is free game.
Yeah, kind of cool.
So, yeah, anytime there was a restart, you go from, the line of 2 cars to the second they passed the restart line, it was chaos, 4 or 5 wide pretty much instantly.
Was that a rule for only certain tracks for a while, or is it a rule for all of NASCAR for a while where you couldn't like dip below the yellow?
I think it's certain tracks.
Yeah.
I think there's an out of bounds. There probably is an out of bounds at Phoenix. It's so much more forgiving than other tracks, but there's always been an out of bounds. And I think it's, a safety thing. Like they don't want people going down there and doing dumb things. So
I'm sure
there's yeah, it was exactly. That was a road course though, but
yeah,
still. Yeah. I don't understand. I don't know enough about it, but I know it was fun to watch that spread of 5 and 6 wide every restart. Not that there were a lot of restarts because it was a pretty clean race until the end, but it was definitely fun to watch them spread out like that and see how the short line might help them catch up, but then they're at a lower speed when they come back on track, and it was hard to make a pass if you're way down low.
Yeah, it was interesting. So
it was cool. Yeah, it was fun. Next week is where's next week? Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. We'll see how how much I keep watching, because it's gonna, once it starts getting warm out, sometimes I'm not in the house on Sundays.
That's the beauty of DVR, Andrew.
Yeah, but more likely I'll do those YouTube catch-ups they do.
Okay, that works. Yeah, I have the TV in the garage, which helps to keep myself from just sitting on the couch all day. I'm able to do things whilst watching NASCAR as well, so that kind of helps. But
speaking of sold out races, we were planning a vacation to go to Europe in June, and I was like, what's happening around that time of year? Oh yeah, Le Mans, because we were just looking for like rallies. So I'm like, all right, cool. The other night, like, we had already booked plane tickets, and we're going to Germany. We're gonna take a train over to Paris and then over to Le Mans, because it's really, geographically, it's not that far. It's like Germany's like the size of Montana, I guess.
Yeah, it's like driving from Boston to North Carolina. Yeah,
you can take a high-speed train and you don't have to do any driving. It takes a couple hours.
Listen, we're Americans here. We're just talking about driving. Okay, we don't have efficient high-speed rail. Come on,
I know. So I'm like, cool. Let me see what's going on with that. And I pull up the website. All tickets are sold out. I was like, what? It's like 3 months from now. And it feels like a gigantic event. Like, how could it possibly sell out? But I didn't realize it's the 100th running, and that's why everybody was going.
Is there a way to get tickets still? Like, have you been able to?
I don't know. I didn't really look into
resellers? Is there a StubHub Europe?
Somebody was like, "Oh, just go." There's like an English speaking Facebook page that you can, like, people are reselling tickets. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's like really far away. I don't want to get there and have fake tickets. Like,
I'm sure there's ways to make sure you get verified tickets.
I don't know. I was like,
I wouldn't stress too much about it. People in Europe are honest. That's what I've heard. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, we're just gonna pivot and do something else. That needs to be its own trip. And I'll just do it next year or something. Okay. We're just gonna stick in Germany, which brings me to something else cool. I'm gonna drive the Nordschleife.
That is very cool. I'm very envious of that.
Yeah. So we had a couple other friends that have gone, and they recommended this rental car company. So I rented a car through them, already reserved. That's not
sold out.
That's not sold out, and you had to double check the days, because there's certain days where it's only like a half day is a tourist day, or the full day is a tourist day, and this is a full tourist day.
Okay. So how many laps does that get you, or is that time based kind of deal?
It's 10 laps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And wow, that's a long.
And then it's like a certain amount if you want to go over, but like 10 laps is a lot. Like that's
a lot.
120 miles roughly, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of laps.
So
I mean, you're talking, more than obviously 10 minutes a lap. So
yeah,
you'll be out there for a few hours.
Yeah. So you want to have the whole day to like break it up. So it's pretty cool. It's like an all-inclusive rental. So you get the entry to the track, the first tank of fuel, 10 laps. There's a little bit extra to have an instructor. So I was like, well, I'm going to do an instructor for like 5 laps. That way, the first 5 laps, I can have somebody with me.
Sure.
And then the last 5 laps, just to myself.
Well, I guess the important question is, what are you driving on the ring?
I wanted something familiar. So I don't drive a lot of
95 Q45.
Yeah, I don't drive a lot of rear-wheel drive. I've always done front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. So I was like, well, I better stick with a front-wheel drive, because that's not where I want to learn to drive a rear-wheel drive car. I'm sure I hear
it's expensive to crash. Expensive to crash there.
Yeah, I paid for the extra insurance too. It's like covers Armco repair, I guess. Hopefully, I don't need it.
Excellent.
So I went with something that would be very familiar. It's a Mark 7 GTI. So at least the dashboard will be familiar to me.
Sure. Is it bone stock car, or is it caged, or what's the?
They do a cage. Let's get race seats, race brakes, race tires. It's got probably a tune. It's got the LSD. I think it said like 230 horsepower.
Okay.
And it's the DSG, so it's not a manual.
Okay. They probably don't want to have. Do they have manuals offered?
They do. Some of the real drive BMWs are manual, but I just wanted something. It's one less thing to think about is shifting.
Sure. Do you also have racing line turned on? And yeah.
I'm sure it'll be plenty challenging, and then just taking it.
That's super cool. I mean, and the DSG in the Volkswagens is known for being a good transmission. It's not going to be boring.
Yeah,
and it's not like you're going to be using it in automatic mode, just driving to and from the store. You're going to be using it
as
the
paddles
on a racetrack. Yeah, and that's what it's intended to be used for, is a car to be used on a racetrack with those paddles and be fun. And let's be honest, most modern race cars are paddle shifted anyway. So that's super cool. I'm insanely jealous. Envious, jealous. I don't know I think envious is the proper word there, but I'd really like to do that someday. But certainly a bucket list item, and I cannot wait to see pictures, videos, and hear your story about that, because
that's why I picked 10 laps.
A couple people were vicariously through you.
A couple people were like, 10 laps is a lot. I'm like, yeah, but if I only do it once, I'm going to do 10 laps.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably half the cost is in the rental and the insurance and everything else.
The laps
don't cost a lot. Yeah,
because it's a tourist day, so it's what they call bridge to gantry lap. So you actually don't do the little straightaway after the start finish.
Okay,
you enter, so that way they don't have people trying to enter the circuit with cars at speed behind them,
180 miles an hour.
Yeah, so they give a big gap of where you enter and exit. So they call it bridge to gantry. Except if you did if you actually rented it for a track day there and not a tourist day, then you could do the whole track.
Right.
But this
whatever.
I'm doing it on a tourist day. Yeah.
You get to do the carousel. That's all that matters.
Right. And I'm wondering, it must exist like it did at the Tail of the Dragon. Like there must be people camped out that just take photos of everything and sell photos.
Oh, they must be. I mean, I see videos all the time. Yeah. I see videos all the time.
I'll have to figure that out.
Get remember which rental Volkswagen was yours. That's all.
I think they only have one.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Or maybe they had a couple. I think there's a picture of a couple. So
they must have at least a backup. So if somebody bins yours the day before you get there, you don't lose your whole thing.
And then, it says it has like video recording, so that's cool.
Awesome. No, I'm stoked on that. I wish I was going, but I will live vicariously through you and enjoy your report. So as I have with other friends that have done it. So
yeah,
I'll get there someday. It's funny. We have a different outlook on traveling. We want to see as much of the United States as we possibly can before we leave it. So,
well, it's always here because I live here.
It is. It's just one of those things that, like, God forbid something happened and I couldn't go somewhere, I'd rather have seen the whole United States before I went somewhere else. I don't know. It's a weird.
Well,
the weird thing.
If you're like wheelchair bound, it's definitely easier to get around the United States than to try to leave the country. So
sure. Well, I'm not that. We'll put it that way, but I think it's just this thing it's this thing we both have. We want to see the whole United States, and then we'll start traveling internationally. And it may not make sense financially or actually, but for us, it just seems to make sense, and that's what we want to do. So the good news is we're almost done. So with all the stuff we really want to see, but I would like to get to Europe at some point, and I'm certainly not going to go to Europe without taking that trip, because why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, I'm jealous. Oh, what else we got, Andrew? Project car update time?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm going there, I also scheduled I haven't done Palmer racetrack here yet.
Okay.
I scheduled a track day for there like the month before. Excellent. So I can get some used to like big elevation changes, which is what Palmer has.
Excellent. As big as Germany?
It's pretty good. Yeah. There's like, I think at least 1,000 feet at that track. It like goes up and down.
Oh, wow.
There's like an uphill and a downhill.
It's like I mean, it kind of has to be if it's a circuit. What goes up must come down.
Yeah, but it's almost like a toge.
Interesting. I don't think I've seen many videos from there. I'll have to check some out. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do some track tasting.
Yeah, I haven't done much. I've just been gathering parts. I had some stuff to.
Well, you're excused because it's winter out there, and like we talked about, you're currently in a nor'easter, so
I'm just looking at the.
Makes sense.
I got a O-ring for the distributor on the G20 because it wasn't something I was thinking of when I did the valve cover gaskets, and it's got a little tiny oil leak near the distributor. So I want to take care of that this year.
The side of the head.
Yeah, it's just an annoying
Excellent.
little tiny leak.
Mm-hmm.
That's like should be easy to fix because it's right on top.
Excellent. Well, I have been doing stuff.
Okay.
Stuff has been done. So after the long saga that is the XR4Ti, it runs again.
What was wrong with it?
Oh, so you want to? We'll do a quick walk back. I had leaking fuel, and it had those plastic hose connectors that I couldn't quite figure out.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. You had the guy press them on.
We talked about that?
Yeah, I think so. You can talk about how you... Maybe we didn't. Why don't you tell them how you have a guy for it now?
I have a guy. So there's a guy based in Phoenix who has a mobile hose truck. Basically, he makes all kinds of hoses and fittings out of the back of a truck. That's like an Isuzu NPR. He just pulls up to your shop, or in my case, my house, and I show him what he got, and he has a special tool to make it work. He didn't have an easy time doing it. He still had to fight with the fittings, but he managed to get them on. So we put the new fittings on the hoses, got everything all lined up under the car. So obviously he wasn't part of that. He just put the fittings in the hoses and he left. It was very reasonable, actually. He lives less than a mile from me. So when I gave him my address, he was like, "Oh, I'll be right there." So he came over and did those hoses. It was like $60 to put the two ends on hoses, which I will pay time and time again because I fought with them for, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 weeks of podcast. So I got that all taken care of. I moved back under the car to put it all together. Brand new hoses, brand new connections. There shouldn't be any leaks at all. And wouldn't you know, it still poured out like a waterfall of fuel. So we had discussed, I think initially, I thought it was leaking out of the fuel pump. And everybody in my world and life was like, no, it can't be leaking out of the fuel pump. It's a metal body with metal ends, and they don't crack or break.
Yeah, it's a weird failure.
Well, it's a very weird failure because all of this disaster of a time could have been solved by putting a fuel pump in it the first time because it was leaking out of the body of the fuel pump.
So strange.
So it's a standard style Bosch pump, like a Bosch 044 style pump, right? So I'm sure you can picture that, and probably most people can because they probably dealt with one at some point in their life. It's a metal body, like a metal cylinder. And then either end has these caps on it that they're like kind of like crimped in, it looks like almost. And that contains all the internal pumping mechanisms, which I assume are plastic or rubber or whatever inside. So I don't know if this is the original one off the car. I do know that it didn't say Bosch on it. It said Robert Bosch, which I don't think I've ever seen one that said Robert Bosch on it. So I assume that means it's older. It didn't have any website addresses or anything, just Robert Bosch and an address. So got that out of the car, put it in just a thing of water just to pump it to see what happened. And it's literally pumping every ounce of fuel that goes into one end out the end cap seam or on the sides.
Yeah, I guess just age and maybe ethanol because it's an original pump.
Yeah, but it's metal. It's all metal.
Yeah, but it probably has a rubber seal inside or plastic seal.
There's no physical external damage. I've never seen one fail like that. Everybody I talked to was like, "No, it's not going to be your fuel pump. It's going to be those forward fittings because over time they get brittle and they go bad and they leak." So I spent the whole time
new one for me
messing around with those fittings. Yeah, it was for me too.
Like I think I said this before, it was not the Occam's razor of the repair. It was not. The fittings would have been.
No, and that's what everybody said it was, and that's why I started doing those first. And then I wound up in this whole nightmare fight with them because of those plastic lines that took forever to get figured out.
Because the fittings didn't have O-rings, so it was like,
The
oh, that's got to
fittings,
be it.
yeah, they didn't have any visible O-ring in one of them, but that wasn't the inside that was leaking apparently. I will say though that as far as plastic fuel lines go, the end, like putting the plastic barbed end in the plastic hose, is a huge pain. I tried everything. There was a guy online who built this, like, you could buy a proper tool to do it, but it's like $400. And then I was trying to find other ways to do it, and there's two different guys online that show you how to take a bench vise and a brake flaring tool, like the brake line flaring tool, and you clamp the hose in the brake flaring tool, and then you put the piece in the bench vise, and then you used like one of those like woodworking style clamps to kind of push even pressure on it. And as you're doing that, use a hair dryer on the hose, and it should, as it gets warmer, expand enough to like slide it in, and by doing even pressure, you get it through there. I tell you, I tried that. Also didn't work. Not even a little bit. I even tried to like expand the hose a little bit by using the actual, flaring parts of the brake flaring kit. And it just didn't do anything. So unfortunately, what would happen is it would get to a point where it was too cold, it wouldn't go in, and then it was like a millisecond later, it was too hot, and the hose just collapsed. There was never that like ideal temperature where the part went in. So once the guy came here and he did it, it took him an hour to do both of them, even with the proper tools. So I can see why it was hard. So regardless, it's all set. So I'm driving the car now. I've probably driven it 6 times since November, which is not ideal. First night out driving it, Naomi and I went to Pavilion's car show and then to dinner afterwards. And on the way home from dinner, we were on Bell Road, which is a kind of a main thoroughfare here in Phoenix. And there was a kid in traffic next to us who was all excited about the car. Was just talking to him at a stoplight. And when I drove away from them, I was doing what, as car enthusiasts, we do, right? Somebody's talking about your car, gave it a little bit of a stab in the throttle. Nothing ridiculous, just a quick little pull. Got to the next stoplight, and we were immediately enveloped in white smoke. Like a significant amount of white smoke. So we're sitting there, the car is smoking like crazy. We get to, the light turns green finally. We drive away. It's belching black smoke out the back. Pull into a parking lot. Shut it off, of course. Make sure it is just white smoke from oil or coolant and not smoke from fire. Because, hey, I've been working with the fuel system on this car now for weeks. Maybe I did something wrong. It's weird that I've already driven 30 miles out and 30 miles back without an issue, but whatever. So, open the hood. There's some smoke under the hood. I walk to the back of the car. I have Naomi turn it on, and it's a steady push of white smoke out the tailpipe. So that usually means one of two things, right? It's either coolant and your head gasket let go, or it's on a turbo car, your turbo, and it's just burning oil. So I'm like, of course, I just got the thing fixed, and now something else broke. So I get the thing, we start it again, more white smoke, shut it off. Let it sit for a little while, let it cool down, start it again, no white smoke at all. Huh. Well, we're like a mile from home. Let me check the oil level, and I'll just baby it home rather than calling a tow truck. So I checked the oil level. It was, it didn't look wrong. Maybe it was, a quarter of a quart low, quarter of a quart. Anyway, so I baby it home. The next day I go out there to kind of like check out what's going on. And my first thought is the turbo went bad. So I pull open the front of the turbo housing, because you can't see the compressor wheel if you just take off the intake tube. You actually have to take off this little elbow. So I took off that elbow, and I reached in there to the turbine inside the turbo, and it's nice and tight. No issues at all. It's weird. So I put it all back together. And I go check the oil again. And I noticed that there's like a rubber O-ring on the dipstick inside the cap, like the top part that goes down. And it's old and hard. And it's not allowing the dipstick to go all the way down into the engine. So my assumption, and the only thing I can think of now, is that I significantly overfilled the engine because I was filling it to where I thought it was supposed to be on the dipstick. But the dipstick was probably somewhere between a half an inch to an inch higher than it was supposed to be.
Oh.
So my assumption is that when I goosed it a little bit on Bell Road, the crankcase pressure must have pushed some oil through the PCV system and somehow gotten into the intake and turbo, right? And just burnt out the exhaust. So I drained the oil out of it, did an oil change, managed to make sure I put the dipstick in correctly, and I've driven it a couple more times since then, and I haven't had a single issue. I drove it clear across town to like East Mesa, which from where I am is probably an hour, and back without any smoke at all. And I made sure that I drove it kind of hard just to make sure there was no issues. And I mean, it seems to be good. So as far as running stuff, the car runs great now.
Yeah, because the only other problem I would think of is if the PCV was clogged and you blew out the dipstick, and then you'll blow oil out of the dipstick tube.
Yeah, it's not what happened, though, because the dipstick tube clearly wouldn't... Like, I tried to push it in, and I realized it wasn't pushing in all the way. So when I put the proper level of oil in it, it never did it again. So I did order all the new PCV parts anyway, just because I'm like, well, if I filled them full of oil, I should probably replace them anyway. So those should hopefully be here this week. I can slap those on. Doesn't look too difficult to do. But yeah, I mean, there's some other stuff the car needs. But as far as the running and driving aspect of it now, it's great. The speedometer stopped working, and it has a weird electrical draw, and those are the two next things to fix. So I don't know, weird stuff with that car. I like it. I'm a little annoyed with it, but we'll stick with it for a little bit. I also ordered to protect the dashboard because the dash is not cracked. I ordered one of those like carpet dash mats to put on it, and I'm actually like it's super annoyed. Right. Well, unfortunately, that's what we think as, Northeasterners. But out here, people just put those in brand new cars because it protects the dashboard from cracking. So, in fact, the company that makes them, so it used to be called Official Dash Mat or something, was bought by Covercraft out of California now. But they were here in Phoenix because that's where they sell most of them. But I bought the thing, and unfortunately, it doesn't fit the dashboard worth a damn. So I'll have to get that back to them because I'm super annoyed by it, and just protect the dashboard by putting a window visor in when I park it. So, but yeah, so that's good. That is one car. Can move on to the next car now. It's been a couple weeks here, Andrew. So next is the Dodge Colt, the blue 78 Dodge Colt.
All right.
So we're getting ready to go to bed. It's probably about, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm already in the bedroom. And I hear Naomi say, hey, Brad, can you come here? Which is a concerning tone. So I go out to the dining room. And in the backyard, we see my yellow Colt is sitting there. Sorry, my blue Colt is sitting there. And the yellow fogs are just on.
Sure.
I haven't driven the car in probably a week at this point. The car hasn't moved, hasn't been touched. It is not covered because I moved things around, and it was pouring rain out. I was like, that's interesting. That shouldn't be. So I went out and found the keys. I went out in the yard. Now I'm nervous because is there somebody in my yard? Is somebody in the car messing with buttons and switches? Like, what am I going to encounter out here? So I go to the car. It's locked. So it's clearly nobody in the car. I'm like, this is even stranger now. So I open the car, and I flick the switch on and off, and it doesn't do anything. The lights stay on. That's weird. Wonder if something happened with the switch. And I flick the switch on and off again, and the lights went off. Okay, that's interesting. So I pop the hood. I'm like, well, I'm going to disconnect the battery because I don't know what's causing this, and I don't want it to happen again in the middle of the night, and then there be some sort of electrical fire in the backyard in the cold. Shouldn't be, because we both relayed it and fused it. So theoretically, there wouldn't be any kind of a fire, but just in case, let's get this taken care of. So I disconnect the battery, close it all up, go back out to it later. Do you remember when we installed those fog lights, Andrew?
Yes.
So we did relay them. We did put a inline fuse in them, all the things to cause them to not have issues. The one thing that we did was we didn't drill a new hole in the car to mount the relay. We mounted it to the one of the bolts that holds the coil to the inner fender. And my assumption is that at one point when I was working on the car, because I recently did a new coil in the car, well, not recently, but I don't know, a year or two ago, I must have inadvertently not been paying attention when I was tightening up the bolt to the inner fender. And as I was tightening it to the right, it turned the relay up, so the relay was sitting upside down. So what happened was it was pouring rain out that night. The car doesn't often sit in the rain. It's normally covered up inside or under a cover. It was pouring rain that night. Or it doesn't rain here because it's Phoenix. It was pouring rain that night, and the water was running down the top of the fender along the inner lip. And right above where that relay is like an embossed piece of the fender that is probably there to allow water to drain out. And it was literally just filling the relay with water. So I pulled the relay off and I popped it open, and the inside of it was completely corroded. Like, it was just making the closed connection all the time. So obviously that was a problem for more than just that one time. It was just the one time that got it to the point where it made enough, like the corrosion made enough of a connection in order for it to actually turn the lights on. So that was frustrating, but I fixed that. I bought a new, 4-wire relay for it. I moved it as well. There was a existing bolt hole on the inside of the strut tower that had nothing in it but was threaded, so I found a bolt with the right thread, and I put it over there, and I made sure that it's facing the right direction, and there's no way water can get into the new one, and we shouldn't have an issue anymore. But everything seems to be A-okay on that one now. So, and everything still works. There was no fire. The lights still work now. Everything works fine. I don't know how long it was on. They were on for, but I had been in the dining room where we saw the lights probably an hour before, so it couldn't have been on very long. So it didn't even drain the battery, and the car fired right up. So no harm, no foul. Just one of those things to be careful for. Make sure your relays are, they don't need to be in a weather tight environment, but make sure they're not going to get soaked with water over and over and over again. So that car is now all good on that front. It's actually sitting right now because before we record a podcast, I was getting ready to work on 2 cars, and that was one of them because I have to replace the quarter panel window latch. It has pop-out windows and the latch is broken, so I have a new latch for that. So that'll be an update next week. So let's see. The other car that's moved for working on is the 81 Cressida. I'm sure people remember they haven't heard an update in that car since the last time you were in town. And that's kind of my motivation to do it right now, is I didn't want to have it sit from the last time you were in town until this time when you're in town without touching it. So I have that car also getting ready to install some more parts. I think last time we talked about it, we had run out of new vacuum line, and I had to order a intake tube because the fence post that was in the car was ridiculous. So
we got most of the vacuum lines done, right? And we especially found the Vance was chewed through by mice.
Correct.
So you haven't tried to run it since then?
I haven't touched it since then, Andrew. I haven't done it at all.
Okay.
So it got pushed aside. Other things kept getting in the way, and I haven't touched it. So now I'm touching it. So I have a couple of vacuum lines left to replace, and then that big intake tube, and then we're going to turn the key and see what happens. I'm also nervous to do that because if it doesn't make it run right, I'm going to be very upset. So
we didn't spend much on it. I'm hopeful that it didn't have vacuum advance, and that's why it was not wanting to rev up.
That would be a good assumption.
And I also had put an O2 sensor in it for you one of the days I was there, and it wasn't getting.
Yep.
I was also thinking maybe it's not getting feedback from that.
Right. So I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things where I'm kind of like, I don't want to touch it because I'm afraid it's going to be still a problem, and then I'm just going to get mad. But
well, if it doesn't, then you just sell it to the person that wants it.
Yeah, somebody does want the car in its current condition, so there is a potential move the car on situation.
Either works well and you can daily it, or I don't know, just sell it to someone else. I don't. Because we also checked the MAF, and that checked out good. Because I left the book with you for that car.
Yep.
I don't know. Yep. Again, Occam's razor. We found chewed through vacuum lines, so
sure. And that one in the vacuum advance was not even a line anymore. So the vacuum advance was not
disconnected. So try it.
So we'll see. But anyway, I also picked up a set of wheels for it because I'm an idiot. But I couldn't pass up a deal, and they're the factory Celica Super wheels.
Well, they work on a bunch of Toyotas, which you have.
They work on a bunch of Toyotas, so if they don't fit this car, I'll just keep them in the stash or something else. But I got a good deal on a full set, all nice and round with center caps in good condition. So I had to pick those up. And I didn't realize that those are, they're 14x7, Andrew, so they're an inch wider than the factory Cressida wheels. But they also have a -8 offset factory, which is why they look so cool, probably. I just never noticed they were so aggressive from the factory. So
it's funny.
That's why they look good on everything.
How they look so much like Starion wheels.
They're like a 4-spoke version of the Starion.
Or Starion wheels.
And they predate the Starion. Yeah, they predate the Starion wheels. But whatever. I've never had a set of these. So I've always liked them, and they look good on things. And they're the 4-on-1 14.3 bolt pattern that 80% of my cars are. So they'll fit something. Initially, when I committed to buying them from my friend, they were going to go on the Corolla wagon. But obviously, I since put the other wheels in the Corolla wagon, so I'll put these in the Cressida and go from there. If the Cressida runs, of course. So, yeah, so that's probably my past couple weeks of actual car updates, but at least there's some stuff I've done in there. I've done some scale auto stuff too. I've finished a couple model cars and been doing full car life stuff, right? Yeah. I finished that. Actually, they're both Corollas, randomly enough. One is an AE92 race car from the 90s, from the 1991 Japanese Touring Car Championship. So when before it was JTCC, when it's called JTC. And that's a fairly new Hasegawa kit, and highly recommend that one. It was a super fun build. And the other one is a TE27 Corolla, so like a 73 Corolla. That was a Fujimi kit that I actually started probably 15 years ago, and it's been kind of just sitting around in an unfinished state. And I was like, you know what? That thing's already painted. I'm just going to go build it. So I did, and they both came out pretty good. And I don't want to go too into scale auto stuff here, but I've purchased a few tools that I've never owned in the past that make my life significantly easier when building models, and have made results way better than they ever have been. So if you wanted to get into building models, don't cheap out on tape, like for doing two-tones or like black parts in the car, like the window moldings and stuff, because I've always just used masking tape. But I went to the hobby store and I bought like the plastic Tamiya masking tape that is really easy to curve and goes around edges really nicely. And it made my life significantly better. And there was no bleed through. And where I did like the black window trim, which is always one of the most hated things on all cars, it came out really well. And probably the most important thing, which I've never owned before, and I can thank Naomi for buying it for me, because she was like, it looks like you can't see, was they're like jeweler's kind of goggles that you wear in your head. And I don't know if it's because I'm old now or more.
Nerd alert! Nerd alert! Woo.
Yeah, but man, it helps a lot. I'll tell you what. It took what used to be very difficult and it made it very easy because it puts it really big right in front of you and you can see the definition perfectly. So I can't recommend getting some nerd goggles to do your hobby stuff because it made all the difference in the world. Like all the fine little detail stuff that I was always irritated that never come out as good on my models as other people's comes out as good now because I can actually see it. So you're doing a hobby by yourself inside your own house. Be as nerdy as you want about it. Nobody can see it. The only thing you can see is that after I wear it, I have the mark on my forehead from wearing it. But whatever, it's fine. Just put a hat on. So totally worth it. I highly recommend them. They have a little LED light in them, and it puts whatever right in your hand so close to your eyesight, and that bright light right on it made it really easy. So do it. I find myself using it for other things now too. So reading,
Yeah,
building models, working on. Yeah, the second I said it, I was like, I am glad. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. That's what I've been doing for car stuff around here. So, and coming up this week, we have, if you're in the Phoenix area, it is the Tempe Town Lake Concourse. Not a traditional concourse, but very similar to the concourse in the hills that I had coverage of when I went earlier this year. So it's kind of an open to all cars concourse, but it's a little bit more fancy of a setting. I will be there with the Cressida, so that should be a good time.
When's that?
That is this coming Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So today's the 14th. So what's that?
It's Pi Day.
19th or 20th? Today's Pi Day, yeah.
Yep.
Now let's see the calendar. So that will be the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So March 18th, and it's all day. I think the show officially goes from 11 to 5. So it's for a good cause. It's for the Phoenix Children's Hospital. All the money raised goes there. So it's totally worth checking out. It is free to spectate, so there's no cost as a spectator anyway. But it should be a good time. Looking forward to that one. Unfortunately, it's maybe it's not. Never mind. It's the same as. Oh, it is. It's the same as Shakedown Saturday at 4 till 4, but that's all right. I'll miss that this week. So, and then Andrew, you'll be here next week, and I don't know what you have going on Sunday, but I think it's going to be a Kyusha Club show Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So, unfortunately, I won't be there because I have tickets to the NHRA event, which I bought before I knew you were coming here.
Oh, okay.
So, but anyway, that's the upcoming events. So,
Yeah, all right.
Anything else, Andrew?
No, come join us on the Discord if you haven't. We've got the dirt rally is in like the 5th or 6th round.
Fifth round today.
Fifth round, yeah. Wrapping up Finland today, and then I forget what the next one is. I think I did 6 rounds.
Maybe? Or Poland's today? I don't know. Whatever.
No, Finland wraps up today. I think I did 6 rounds, so that means the next one should be New England is the last one. We're doing front wheel drives. I think I'll probably try to set up another one after with some different cars, but that's there. Yeah, join us in the Discord. Go follow Parked on the Block. We've got a lot of content going on there. Follow it on Twitter, please. If you're on Twitter, Parked on the Block minus the K. We are on Instagram. A lot of people have followed us there. You've been pushing that, Brad.
Trying.
And you can follow me on Instagram, Erased in Anger. Follow this podcast, Out Off Topic, and Out Off Topic on Facebook, although we don't post there much, and Out Off Topic on Twitter as well. Where else, where can they find you?
Well, you covered most of it. My personal Instagram, TSISS350, or you can find our model car content and diecast content on Scale Autocast on Instagram.
Oh, and we recorded an episode with our friends over at another pointless automotive podcast. Yes, and I think it comes out this week. I actually forgot to ask them.
Yes, I think it does too.
Well,
we did attempt to record an episode of this podcast with them, but we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, we'll give it another try.
I think we're gonna give that another try when Andrew's here in town, so we can just kind of have 2 setups instead of trying to mix all 4 together. I think there was there. I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties, unimportant, but we'll make it happen. So those guys are awesome. Give them a listen if you haven't. They are. I don't want to say they're exactly the same as us because they're not. They're very similar. They have a lot of updates on crappy old cars they were always working on. They do play a game similar to our Craig Don't Tell Me with car ads, and they're just generally good guys. They're
which we aced.
Yeah, for sure. Spoiler alert, we got it right.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, go give those guys a listen. APA, or Another Pointless Automotive Podcast. They're fun couple of guys, Frank and Chad. So check them out.
All right, cool. As always, keep cars analog and aim for the roses.